joining us for a Weinberg Wednesday. That's right, he's joining me from game night on the Sports Bash. He is Dave Weinberg, Extra Point Columns over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Longtime veteran Eagles writer joins us right now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Josh. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So I'm going to kind of leave the first question for you a little open-ended here because I feel like everyone has a perspective on this. So Jalen Hurts will start over Carson and Wentz this Sunday. Your reaction is?
Honestly, I was surprised. I know not a lot of people weren't, but I just thought that Doug would stick with Wentz for this week, mainly because I thought that, Hurts did okay against the Packers, but I don't think he was terrific by any means. But then again, Doug must think that the team needs a spark, like you said yesterday or today, I guess, and that's the way he's going to go with it. But I don't know that it'll last like more than one game. I guess it depends on how Jalen fares against the Saints. But I was surprised because I thought he would go back to Carson against New Orleans.
Do you think it's possible that Doug Pederson is feeling the hot seat? So for the next 4 games, he's trying to prove, hold on a second, this isn't my offense. It's not their fault. The problems are not the offense. It was the quarterback throwing the ball. If we insert someone new, you will see that my scheme isn't that much of an issue.
Good question. No, 'cause I think the scheme is going to change a little bit with Jalen. They're going to do more RPOs and take advantage of his versatility and his running ability. So I don't know that, but he's taking a big risk here because you've already seen some backlash from guys like Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox. The younger guys seem to be on board with the switch, but the older guys are kind of taking offense to the fact that Doug's kind of essentially throwing Carson under the bus here, and so it's going to be interesting. He's got a real balancing act on his hands here, where he's got to make sure that he doesn't lose the team. Not that he might have lost him already, I don't know, but it's a really precarious situation for Doug.
I'll just counter that by saying, Dave, obviously we'll find out more this Sunday, but I feel like if Doug lost the team, Dave, they wouldn't be playing so hard. Like, I feel like they're still out there playing hard. The guys are still, working their tails off. And it's like kind of like Jason Kelsey said today. He's like, listen, we owe it to the team, the city, the fans. We owe it to everyone to figure out how to fix this. And I feel like that, the team maybe at least still believe, maybe they don't like Doug's decision, but I feel like they still believe in what Doug's offering them.
Probably, yeah, they do. I mean, Doug certainly has command of that team. He has their respect, I think. Although it's kind of telling, I thought that Jason said, everybody needs to take ownership of it if everybody's made mistakes, coaches included, which is kind of a sort of a backhanded stab at Doug a little bit. But yeah, I mean, he does have control of the team. I mean, he has their respect, and rightfully so. I mean, he did deliver the team's first Super Bowl ever. It's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward, though. Say Jalen plays well against the Saints and maybe even pulls out a win. Do you go back to Carson? Do you stick with Jalen? Does the team buy into that? It's going to be a really interesting situation to see how it plays out over the next couple of weeks.
Something that blew my mind today when I heard Doug Pederson speak was he was asked about this certain scenario they're in now. Did they ever envision this? And he said no.
Right.
And it blows my mind because that was the reaction of everyone in this city the moment they made that selection is this is going to cause some sort of drama in this locker room, and they had no clue. They were unaware. And how can you be so unaware of this situation?
I read it a different way, honestly. I mean, I thought that the question was referring to the fact that Carson has stunk it up the way he has.
Okay,
I don't think
that's
Doug
fair.
envisioned that. I don't think he envisioned Carson being as bad as he's been. And why would you? I mean, he's been a pretty decent quarterback up until this point. The regression has been nothing short of shocking, really. Just the fact that he's so skittish, so indecisive, making bad decisions when he makes a decision. I don't think Doug envisioned that. But you are right, though. I mean, you should have been able to expect this kind of backlash when you draft a quarterback in the second round. You know he's going to be playing at some point.
Dave Weinberg joining us for a Weinberg Wednesday here on Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg19. Check his extra point columns over at 97.3ESPN.com. Another thing that Doug said today that stood out to me, Dave, that I thought was interesting was when they asked him about, what are you going to do to help Hurts be successful? I feel like he literally took the words out of every Eagle fan's mouth. Well, we got to run the ball. Well, we got to, get him in rhythm. Well, we got to get those, quick passes. And it seems like it's almost like is Doug telling us something that, that you're willing to do this for Hurts, but in at least the Eagle fans' mind, you weren't able to do this for Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I don't know, and Doug probably deserves some blame for this. I think that he made the mistake of putting too much on Carson's plate. And I guess you have to do that when you pay the guy that much money. He's had a pretty good career up to this point. You think that he's going to be your franchise guy going forward. But with Jalen, you have to dial it back, or you have to make some changes. I think you have to. It's kind of a similar situation that they went through with Nick Foles, in that I think the other members of the offense realize they have to pick up their game to compensate because Carson's not there now. You have to take as much pressure off of the quarterback as you can, and Doug did the same thing with his play calling with Nick. I think they made the mistake of expecting Carson to carry this offense rather than spread it out a little bit. And people have been preaching for years now about running the ball, and for whatever reason, he doesn't seem willing to stick with it.
How do you view the lack of the Miles Sanders usage? I am definitely concerned on how they play him, but at the same time, he does fumble the football a lot. He's not catching the football. I just try and see, is there a reason why this is happening? Is there a correlation between the fumbling and not catching the ball and why we don't see him used as much as we probably anticipated?
I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. Doug just doesn't seem willing to commit to the running game, and why, I don't know. I mean, Miles does have his issues, certainly, ball security and what have you, but he's also the most dynamic offensive player. I mean, he's the guy that makes that offense go, really. When he's in rhythm and when he's hot, he's as good as it gets, I think. Not just as a runner or receiver, but even as a blocker. And I don't know why they've failed to take advantage of his talents. I'm really not sure. I know, like, the argument could be, you fall behind and you have to throw the ball to catch up, but that really hasn't been the case in most of the games. I mean, they've been right there. There's been close ball games for the most part, but for whatever reason, I don't know if he doesn't trust Miles. Maybe there's an injury issue there that because he had some, injury problems earlier in the year. Maybe there's lingering. I don't know, but it's really puzzling to me as well.
Dave, speaking of what's puzzling also with this offense.
By the way, you don't need to put Jordan Howard out there for crying out loud. That's ridiculous.
Well, that was kind of where I was going to go. And that's what's puzzling to me also is that what Doug said today about Alshon Jeffrey, Jason Pederson, they probably aren't going to play. It's like, well, you put out Jordan Howard last week. You have Alshon getting all these snaps. You had Jason Peters starting. Now all of a sudden Jalen Hurts is in there. It's like, let's take all the veterans off the field. Like, that perplexes me so much.
It's kind of like about time with Jason Peters. The guy cannot play anymore. He just can't. He had a great career. He's probably an Hall of Famer, but he's not a left tackle anymore. He's certainly not a right guard anymore. He's just not a player anymore. So, you have to go with Nate Herbiger or what have you, out there to give the young guys. And I never agree with the Alshon Jeffrey stuff. I mean, that's just a waste. Why Travis Fulgham has to share the workload with him now, it was just ridiculous in the first place. So I'm glad those two guys are out there. But you're right, it probably should have happened sooner. But I don't know, maybe I found it kind of telling when Doug was asked about the comments he made before the Cleveland game. That the reason that I haven't gone with Jalen and some of the younger guys is that the division is still at stake. So does that that would send a message that the season is over? Well, I guess that's the way he feels now. I mean, he must feel that they're not going to be able to win the division. So why not give these younger guys a shot?
Yeah, he countered that by saying, "Oh, that was back then. I'm just looking for a spark." But the messaging is just unbelievable. So he was also asked about Carson Wentz backing up Jalen Hurts, and he said, "Let's see how this week goes, but I expect that to be the case." Now, we had Jeff Mosher of Inside the Birds on, and he said that might not even be a bad idea to have the guy inactive where he doesn't need to think about it. I just feel that you can't go down that road based off of the contract and the situation. I would be stunned if he's inactive. Would you?
Yeah, same here. That would be the ultimate insult to, making the third string guy behind Sudfeld. No, that's not. I don't think that does anybody any good. It doesn't give him. I don't think that would serve any purpose to make him step back to that point. I mean, if Jalen, happens to struggle, you need Carson to come back into the game. It might be kind of insulting to him. I don't know, but yeah, you can't make him the third string quarterback. That's just not feasible.
How much do you feel like at this point, Dave, because you've covered the Eagles for a while, you've seen a lot of different versions of these head coaches in these press conferences. Obviously, 2020 is the strangest thing we've all ever seen. But listen, is there something to be said with the fact that does it feel like Doug is almost just going up there and winging it sometimes? Like, I almost feel like he's just trying to make the best of a bad situation, and he's just not helping himself.
Yeah, he's not. This is not the Doug that I'm used to hearing from. Usually, in the past, he's been he's not really forthcoming with his press conferences a lot of times, but at least he'll try to give some information and maybe crack a joke here and there. But this version is he's just a beaten man almost. I mean, he knows he's going to be taking some heat, and I think he's really tired of it. I don't know if it's just he seems really defensive now too. Constantly referring to the injuries and stuff, or in the past he would say, yeah, we've had injuries, but it's the next man up mentality. But he's not even doing that now. He just knows this is a bad football team, and, it's clear in the way he answers the questions.
With 4 games to go, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is he's fired. What's the number on how you feel Doug Pederson is at right now?
Is what? I'm sorry?
1 to 10, the scale, 1 to 10, 10 being Doug Pederson will be fired. What do you think the number is on the hot seat right now for Doug Pederson with 4 games remaining?
In my opinion, 1.
Okay. Wow.
I just don't think you fire a guy who won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, especially in these unique circumstances with the no preseason, no training camp, so to speak, virtual meetings, not being able to have hands-on contact with your players, all the injuries that have happened. Granted, he hasn't handled this thing very well. His play calling has been really suspect and stuff. But I personally, I give him 1 more year to turn this thing around, and because I just don't think he deserves to be fired. But that's just me.
So with that being said, does that make Howie Roseman's seat hotter than Doug's?
Yes. I give him like an 8 or a 9.
Okay.
I just think that I just, again, personally, I put more of the blame on him than I do on Doug. His drafts have been horrific. Why is Jason Peters still here? Why is Alshon Jeffrey still here? Why did you bring back Deshaun Jackson? I don't understand. Like, a lot of the moves just befuddled me, and how he deserves to take the blame for that.
I think now this is my counter, and it's not that I say you're wrong, but this is just my thinking out loud thing I've been asking for the last couple of days. I'm starting to wonder, because you and I have talked about Jeffrey Lurie, about the kind of owner he is. There's a part of me that wonders, does Howie also have this job because he knows what Jeffrey Lurie wants, and he's not going to press back on Lurie when it comes to some of the things that maybe Lurie thinks the Eagles should do, and that some of the decisions that are being made are not 100% Howie, but it's that Lurie saying, this is what I want. Because we know Lurie has a relationship with Jason Peters. There's rumors that Lurie has been involved in some of these draft day decisions that Howie gets flack for. There's a part of me that wonders, is Howie in some ways just an extension of Lurie?
You can probably trace that back to when he hired him in the first place. I mean, he's kind of his project. In the first place, I mean, Howie was just known as a salary cap guy who begged for a job, and Jeffrey kind of, groomed him, I guess, is the best way to put it. Although he also demoted him too, if you recall, when Chip Kelly insisted on having control over personnel. So maybe this is just his way of, Howie, you can have your job back, but I'm going to have my thumb on the team as well. You're not making these decisions by yourself. It's my team. I paid for it, so I want to have a say. Although I don't know if he's as hands-on as some of the other guys, like Jerry Jones, certainly Daniel Snyder,
Right.
those kind of guys. But he does have an influence, I think, on some of the decisions that are made.
Dave Weinberg joining us for a Weinberg Wednesday here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Usually joins me on game night, but of course game night not on tonight because I'm on the Sports Bash. So Dave was kind enough to move up the time slot for us here on 97.3 ESPN. Now, Dave, with everything we just talked about with the Eagles, with all that being said, we ran a poll yesterday. Mike Yale put up a poll that said, who is basically the most disliked sports figure in Philadelphia? And the question was, Howie Roseman or the field. And Howie Roseman got 74% of the vote. And my vote was the field because to me, and I know that Hunter says that, the Eagles are the biggest thing in the city. I get that. But to me, the biggest, as Hunter would say, hate the face in Philadelphia, to me right now is John Middleton. I mean, that guy is just an abomination.
I was just going to say that. Yep, that he would get my vote. No doubt about it.
I mean, at least Howie Roseman was part of a team that built a Super Bowl champion. Ever since John Middleton became the face, since Mr. Giles left and passed away, I mean, the only thing this guy has done is sign Bryce Harper. He's done nothing else right.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, you're and Hunter's right. I mean, the Eagles are the face of Philadelphia. They are the most popular franchise by far. You have your hardcore Sixers fans, Flyers, Phillies, what have you, but the Sixers are the Eagles are what carry that town. So, it's natural to assume that Howie might be the guy who people despise at the moment. But yeah, for me, it's Middleton also.
I just don't understand, Dave. You're a baseball guy as well. You love baseball. You and I have talked about that before. Mm-hmm. I just don't understand how John Middleton, supposedly as plugged into the city and as connected with the fans as he claims he to be, doesn't get that he's turning into basically a light, worse version of George Steinbrenner at this point.
Oh, that's good. That's taking it pretty far, but yeah, he's not the most popular guy, and some of his decisions are really befuddling, and even like the non-decisions, like why isn't JT Realmuto coming back? That's the one decision that just baffles my mind. Even Bryce Harper openly campaigned for the guy to return, but for whatever reason they determined it was too much money, or we lost too much money this year. You're firing like 100 guys just before Christmas for whatever reason. It's just the whole thing is just a complete disaster with the Phillies.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more you're hearing names and hearing conversations about interviews and people being brought in, I don't think it's ironic that people are staying in the Dodgers organization or they're staying with Minnesota. I think they have these interviews and they're thinking, wow, it is a mess there. I'm going to stay where I'm at. All these interviews and everyone I'm excited for, they seem to be staying where they're at, and it doesn't make sense. This is a big market. It's Philadelphia. They have a ton of money. I'm drawing the dots here. There's a problem with the ownership, and it's relating to what you're seeing with some of these interviewees.
Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah, I mean, people want security. They want an organization that they can trust, and the money's great. And like you said, it's a big market town, obviously, but the underlying things, like I said, the trust, the sense of security. That plays a big factor too. You don't want to play for somebody who is going to turn their back on you, or work for somebody who's going to turn their back on you at a moment's notice. So yeah, I don't blame them at all for staying where they are.
Philadelphia's got a strange ownership situation, don't they? Right now, I mean, the Flyers have really no owner. It's basically just Comcast kind of hanging out there, letting the organization flap in the wind to an extent. You have Josh Harris, who. He also owns the Devils, and he also has 20 other interests, but he hired Daryl Morey, so everybody thinks right now he's okay. Jeff Lurie, we don't really know how involved or not involved he is in the team. And then you got John Middleton just stuffing his face into the wall, making himself look bad. I mean, it's a strange situation with the ownership of the major four sports teams right now, Dave.
Yeah, it is. Jeffries, through his tenure, I think he bought the team in '94, I believe, '93 or '94. Over time, he's kind of learned how to. He knows what the fan base expects from him. He knows what they want to hear. So he's very good at doing that. If you notice, you don't see him making a whole lot of public statements. He generally has this one press conference at the beginning of training camp, and then maybe at the end of the year he'll give like a State of the Union or what have you. But in between, you don't hear from him, hardly at all. And that's the way you probably should do it. You should, make the decisions you want to make, but then sit back and let the football people run the organization. And that seems to be a lesson that John just really doesn't seem to grasp.
He's Dave Weinberg. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter at Dave Weinberg19. Check out his extra point columns over at 97.3 ESPN.com. And don't forget his podcast, Tequilas in Touchdowns, with Dave Weinberg and his old guests. He appeared on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Dave, always appreciate the time and the conversation.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it also.